Hey guys, this is Moriarty, and today I have with me
Aliscus.
and we're going to be taking a look at Samurai Sword VR, which is a brand new VR sword slashy kind of game. Think a little bit like Fruit Ninja, or actually Fruit Ninja is probably the best one, except that you're moving. You are on a horse.
Is that all the game is? Is that you're just sitting on a horse and you go through and hit stuff?
You're on a horse, you go through, and you slash stuff.
Sounds like fun. Is it all bamboo, or is there other stuff too?
There's all sorts of random stuff. I don't know what any of them are because I'm not really a Japanophile. But there's also a couple of problems with the game right off the bat. And the first is that the way that you naturally hold a sword with regards to the Vive controller makes it so that you're constantly hitting the menu button.
Oh, that's irritating.
Super irritating because you're in the middle of something and then all of a sudden the menu pops up.
Does that happen a lot?
It happened more times than I wanted it to, for sure. I mean, you don't want it to happen at all.
Well, yeah, you're in the middle of slashing and dicing and having a grand old time, and then all of a sudden it's like, would you like to change your setting?
Exactly. Super disconcerting. The entire point of the game is to slash as many times as possible without missing anything.
So it is a lot like Fruit Ninja.
It's very much like Fruit Ninja. And as you're going through the whole thing, you just want to slash as much as you can and not miss anything at all. So if you're going through a cherry blossom forest, you want to slash everything 20, 30 times if you can, because it builds up that multiplier and then you get a higher score.
So it looks like it's just you try and hit it as many times as you can before it disappears?
Right, yeah, and that's the other problem with the gameplay here, is that really what you're doing is just hitting something as many times as possible while making sure you don't miss anything. And so what I found myself doing in the beginning was trying to be, a little artsy and like cut everything and be all cool and stuff. And at the end, wildly swinging the controller as fast as I could in every direction.
Just flailing around.
Completely flailing around so that I could get as many cuts as possible.
It becomes kind of a button masher.
It becomes a VR button masher, yeah. Now, it's great for the exercise. I tell you, my forearm still hurts from this game, and I played it 2 or 3 days ago now.
Oh, yeah?
Ultimately, it really did just become wildly wave it around as quickly as I can so that I can get 30 or 40 hits on something.
So essentially, it doesn't really require any sort of skill at all. It's just you go, go, go.
No skill. And I thought it included skill at first. I really did. I thought, oh, hey, this requires skill, but it ended up not requiring any skill at all.
Just trying to be all artsy, just, oh, the way of the samurai. I'm trying to make everything symmetrical when I cut it.
Right, yeah, doing cool stuff, because, if you're in VR, what do you want to do? You want to do cool stuff. It just didn't work out that way. The Shuriken and Kunai minigames are kind of fun, but ultimately, the way that they have you holding the Shurikens and the Kunai is just not natural. You have to point your controller way down so that your wrist is all tilty, and it just doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel very natural.
It's not a natural flowing motion then, like you would if you were really tossing it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like I'm tossing it. So instead, I found myself just kind of throwing out as fast as I could in order to just do it. And there seems to be some sort of an auto aim as well. I noticed it several times that I would throw something randomly and it would hit something.
Right, right.
That just ended up feeling like I wasn't
doing anything. I hate that, because when you're in a game, you want to feel like you're actually doing something. You want to feel like you have some sort of skill, that you're actually progressing, not just, in level or score, but in your actual skill with the game, because it feels great.
Especially in VR, because it's so immersive. Having that extra feeling of I'm doing it. I'm actually the one who's doing this thing.
Right, because you feel like you're there.
Yeah, when you take that away from somebody, it's not so good.
I feel like it would become boring after a while. Just kind of like, swingy, swingy, swing. I'm not doing anything. It does it all for me. What's the point?
You don't even have to use the sword edge forward. You can just literally wave it back and forth, and you'll chop and dice these things like you're a sushi chef.
You can't really tell when you're kind of looking at a video of a VR game, but how did the graphics look?
That is one of the things, right? VR, none of the current VR headsets have great images. They are much, much lower resolution than even a high-tech phone is now. Typically speaking, the first time you stick a headset on, the resolution is noticeable. When was the last time you started a game and you were like, oh, I can see the pixels?
It was when I started a Borderlands in the wrong resolution for my computer, and I thought it was just really old and crappy and pixely, and then I realized I was an idiot.
That kind of feeling is the feeling you get the first time you start up any VR game. You always go, man, the resolution just kind of sucks.
But I mean, I feel like it would, be overcome by the fact that, oh yeah, I'm actually in this environment. I mean, don't you kind of get over that after a little bit?
You get over it almost immediately. You stick it on, and within 30 seconds, you've completely seen past the pixelation. The fact is that these games typically look better on the PC than they do in the actual VR themselves. When we get a game that actually looks better in VR, it's completely shocking, and that's why. It's because it actually looks better on PC most of the time. So the graphics are okay. You get over everything, and this game is fairly immersive for that reason. It's just because there's no real tactics or skill necessary to do anything, it kind of falls flat in the end.
For someone like myself who has never actually played a VR game, I know, sad, would this be a good first choice?
It's okay. It feels like a mobile game. This is the VR version of a mobile game. You're just kind of doing your Fruit Ninja-ing. It's alright.
So it'd probably be better to start off with something else then?
Most people who start off in VR are going to go into your experiences kind of games, so those are the things where it's like The Blue or the Star Wars Trials on Tatooine, which are not really games. They're just experiences that you kind of sit through and watch and see what happens. And those are definitely much more popular for the newer player, simply because there's no motion, there's no real expectation that you are interacting with anything. Now, one of the nice things about this very slow forward movement, the on-rails movement, is that there is no motion sickness.
Really?
I am highly prone to motion sickness.
Oh yeah?
If the game doesn't have teleportation, I really can't do it.
That's pretty bad.
But this game, on the other hand, I had no problems with whatsoever.
Well, that's good. Because just looking at it, I mean, obviously you can't get a real sense of it simply because you're not in the VR, like I said. It seems like it would give you motion sickness. It really does.
No, when you're moving through it, it works just fine. It is a very short game, however. I was able to complete the entirety, not in the best possible run, but I was able to get through the whole game in under 20 minutes.
Oh, is it worth the price?
The price isn't even announced yet. If this game is a $10 game, or at most a $15 game, and they continue to add to it, sure. And I could see this being a great way to just kind of get some quick arm exercise and play around. It is not a game of skill. It's not a game that requires you to be good at what you're doing. You're just kind of flailing wildly and trying to get as many random cuts as possible. So there's not really a lot to the game. There's not a lot to do. There's not a lot to experience. After 25 minutes, you've played every single thing that's in this game. There's nothing else really to get out of this unless you're trying to get that higher score, which is why I'm comparing it so much to a mobile game. This is that in VR. It's kind of cool. It's not as much as I'd hoped it would be, because when you say to me, Samurai Sword VR, well, you've already got Fruit Ninja. Fruit Ninja does this basically the same, and it does it pretty well, and you go out there and you chop up your watermelons in VR, and that's really cool. It just doesn't have enough there that I can strongly recommend it. If it's cheap enough, it's a good enough time, and it really does, man, my arm, so much pain, much wow.
Much wow?
So wiggling that controller back and forth, absolutely, yeah. That's not enough for me.
Right, because essentially it's Fruit Ninja remastered without the fruit.
Altogether, it's an alright game. Would I buy it? Maybe.
If it was more of an early access type of game and they were continuing to add to it, continuing to add more levels, continuing to add more mechanics, I imagine that you wouldn't refund it at that point.
So there you go, guys. That's Samurai Sword VR. A very special thank you to Aliscus, who you can also see streaming every weekend on Sundays.
This has been Aliscus. Thanks for having me. Skoo skoo ka-chow!
If you like it, like it. If you don't like it, don't like it. Don't forget to subscribe, check out the Patreon, leave us a comment, let us know, is this a game that you would try out? Have you played any other games like this? Are you a Fruit Ninja fan? And die hard about it. And we'll see you on the next one.